Hello. This is a bit different from my usual content, and I've been gone for a while, but I wanted to make a few speculative kits for the upcoming IDs for the anniversary event since I think that I have a decently good general idea what each ID might focus on. Though, before I get into the video, well, first let me switch over here. Uh, I want to credit TAS for giving me access to the template and I will be using, and I will take the time to explain the template. So at the top here, you can see the HP, speed range, defense level modifier, stagger thresholds, resistances. Uh, that's just the basic stats of the ID. And you can go down here and see the passive and the support passive, the skills. And for each skill, this is the base power, this is the coin power, this is the offense level modifier, these are the coins, and this is the attack weight. Okay, firstly, I want to go over Don Quixote. Considering that Wishing Karen was just released a week ago, it's pretty safe to say that the ID will be built around synergizing with the ego and the ego passive. So, the main design I think this ID will be making use of is that this ID will benefit from targeting enemies that are at low HP. The entire kit is based around this. So, for example, we're going to start with a passive, though I will preface saying that for most of the passives, you should take them with a grain of salt because I am not good at predicting those, I think. Uh, when attacking a target that is missing 30% of their HP, gain 1 poison hit. Additionally, when attacking a target missing 60% of their HP, always critically strike when attacking and do not lose poise count on crit. So generally the idea behind the entire kit is that you want Dawn to be finishing off targets with her skills so she can gain the benefits from the Wishing Karen passive. And reaching low HP allows her to just always be able to crit and not have to worry about poise count too much, so you can rely on these on crit effects on her skill 2 and her skill 3 to boost up your damage. Starting off with the skill 1, it's pretty basic. It's a 3 base power, 4 coin power skill. These are everywhere this season. Uh, uh, this will be an effect you're seeing a lot. If the target is missing 30% of their HP, gain 1 coin power. And it's just a skill 1. You gain poise count. You inflict bleed. A little bit of bleed count over here too. And it's sloth because you want a few Wishing Karen. And like generally, poise tends to lack sloth outside of Pirate Gregor. Moving on to skill 2, this is pretty much, honestly, the same skill, except it's just a little bit better. So you have more base power, more coin power. It's pretty much the same on use effect as this one. A little bit more bleed, but we actually gain some poise potency on here. And we have a couple crit effects over here for some bonus damage and bleed count. Generally, I think this idea will be like pretty simple. Moving on to the skill 3. It's just going to be like really the thing you want to finish off enemies with because it gains even more coin power if the enemy is missing any more HP, and it'll also I wanted to make sure that poise potency is still a bit useful even after you're hitting an enemy that's missing 60% of their max HP. So I just added an effect here that made it so that Dawn does more damage on crit for every poison self. And those the max 30%. And all the skills here apply bleed on hit on the first coin to make sure that she can always activate that Wishing Karen passive. And here on the last coin, we just got an on crit effect and an on kill effect to get a bit of slash power to reference the actual overthrow originally for Ruina. That's probably not going to be 3 slash power on kill, so that's why I toned it down a bit. And this counter has a bit of that Blade Lineage flavor by giving it a little effect here that it says if this unit takes more than 10% of their max HP and damage after being attacked, gain 2 damage up. You'll be seeing this kind of effect on counters later down the line, and it's just got a bit of bleed and bonus crit damage. For the support passive, it's honestly something I kind of just tacked on. So yeah, it just follows the same line of logic CID, more damage for enemies missing HP. Okay. Secondly, for Faust, I immediately knew what I wanted to do here because generally, if you look at her effects from the trailer, they're very distinct from all the other Blade lineage units we actually have in the game and in the trailer so far. Because all the others have that clean, uh, just gray steel effect when they're slashing. But for Faust, she starts off with that, regular Blade lineage VFX, but then like on the second coins of like her skills, it's like tainted with red. So I do think that this ID will be the linchpin of Blade lineage bleed stacking, and I really wanted this ID to be like a poise bleed idea. I don't really want to hammer that home. So like pretty much everything on this kit is very much about bleed and poise interacting together. Starting off with a passive again, probably not what's going to be, but it'd be cool. All right, so you gotta follow my logic here. All right, so if this unit has poise, gain crit chance equal to bleed on enemy times 5% when attacking an enemy with bleed, max 100% bonus crit chance. And when critically striking an enemy that has bleed, gain 1 poise and deal bonus damage equal to bleed percent. So basically 1 bonus crit damage per bleed up to a maximum of 20. So for his skill 1, poise teams generally do not have too much gloom. So this idea is a good way to rectify that. And so this gives him a bit of gloom gen. And considering skill 1, I just gave it like the usual bog standard 3 coin skill 1 of 3 base power, 2 coin power. But considering season 3, like most skill 1s have definitely been just getting stronger and stronger. So I think that this will be the first 3 coin skill 1 with a coin power condition that is not on a tank. So yeah, for a DPS ID like this one, okay? So the main idea here is really poise and bleed. So it has a dual condition, so you can either have 6 poise or 6 bleed. That's what I'm thinking at least. And then you can gain 1 coin power from that. And then on use, you'll gain a bit of poise. And then you can use this to help start off your poise stack pretty well. And once you're stacked with poise and the enemy has a bit of a bleed, you can apply a bit more bleed count. And you can gain a bit more poise count to make sure you can just, always keep your poise stack up, since it can get pretty limited at times. Moving on to skill 2. It's honestly, like, I'll definitely say that most of my inspiration from this ID comes from Pyro Gregor, since he's really the best example of an ID that has poise and bleed intertwined, and how it interacts with it. It has the same thing as skill 1, but it's just a little bit different. So it gains +1 coin power for every 6 points on self and 6 bleed on enemy cumulatively. So the idea here is that, what I think is that, say if you have 9 poise on self, 3 bleed on the enemy, you'll get 2 coin power. So it allows you to like really focus on one thing if you want to, or the other, or both, and it'll work out for you. A bit of poise count on use. And this is ideally the skill you want to use to inflict a decent amount of bleed and bleed count. It'll have a bit of extra crit damage too. And honestly, like the skill 3 is like pretty similar to Pirate Gregor skill 3. But I mean, it's really just like a 2 coin skill with a really big last strike. So I think it'd be fit pretty well. So same thing here. Gain coin power, just increase max, and on hit. Wanted a bit more poise bleed synergy, so it'll inflict extra bleed equal to poise on itself, which helps set up for the second coin effect, which is a big crit damage modifier, plus a special effect, which is on hit, deal bleed times 2% of damage is bonus ramp damage, max 40%, and on kill gains some damage up. So you just want this to be a really big hit, and it'll, do good against like Wrath Leak enemies, because like, honestly, for the effects, it looks pretty powerful, and the whole screen turns red, so that's the idea I got from it. Moving on to the counter, you'll definitely notice immediately that this is like a really, really strong counter. And the idea behind it is that Blade Lineage also fosters really squishy, like a -5 defense level modifier plus a pretty low HP total. So you take a big risk by just taking a hit using this ID, but you can get pretty big reward with if you fulfill the condition. You can get a really strong counter that applies a lot of bleed, especially on crit. And again, I just took a bit of inspiration from the 7 Faust and W Sang support passive, so just more damage based on bleed, specifically on crit though. And yeah, that's Blade Lineage Faust. Moving on to Gregor. I'll admit that this is probably the weakest prediction I have here. I was kind of running out of steam for this one. So I just try to keep it pretty basic outside of the passive. This has a lot of text, but it's pretty simple when you really get down to it. So generally, the main idea here is just a bit of flavor. So for the whole Kurokumo gimmick. So uh, essentially, at the start of the combat phase, unit and 3 or more other allies target the same skill slot. So think of it as like the opposite of what you do for Sinclair in a single combat. And then this unit and up to 5 other allies targeting that slot gain 1 damage up and inflict 1 bleed on hit, with the first coin of their first skill targeting that slot. And allies from the Kurokumo clan additionally inflict 1 paralyze. So generally the idea is just like the whole, gang up on one guy and inflict a bunch of status effects and deal a bunch of damage. And I have this little end of the text here that allies from the Blade Lineage cannot benefit from this passive and do not count towards the maximum. This is a downside in lower team content, but in the future, if we get content with 10 centers, you can technically use this to your advantage, hypothetically. If you bring a team of Kurokumo as one part of the team, and then you can bring Blade Lineage as the other section, so you can ensure that this passive always hits your Blade Lineage guys. If you're all targeting the ones the same skill slot. Support passive is pretty similar to this one. Instead, it's just 4 allies from the same faction targeting 1 slot, and all allies belonging to that faction gain 1 damage. Pretty simple. Skill 1 is just basic sloth, 1 coiner, 2 bleed, 1 damage down next turn. Block is literally vanilla, nothing much to talk here. For Silent Mist, it just helps facilitate this passive a bit by giving protection to self and protection to 2 other allies who are being targeted by attacks, so you can one side more and not have to worry about being staggered. And Kurokumo allies gain some defense level up for the trouble. And coin power condition for bleed, and just a bit of bleed count and bleed on hit with some more debuffs, because that's practically the Kurokumo's gimmick, right? Just bleed count, debuffs, sort, with offense level down based on bleed. Scattering Slash, I just took some, I'm sorry, movement. I took some inspiration from 7 Sang. There's a strong coin power condition, so you can roll decently high on this ID. Here, this is just a bit of bleed count on hit. I entertained the thought of putting Tremor Burst on these first 2 things, but that's probably not going to happen. But I think, at least for this ID, I just wanted to go more for the bleed count debuff route. So just bleed count, 1+1 count to all to the value of the effect applied to that last coin. So you get 2 bleed count, and then some attack power down, assuming all the coins hit. Okay, finally for Mersault, main idea is that I gave him a augmented version of Singular Strike as an always active passive. So the main idea behind here is that it still affects skills with just 1 coin, but it will also affect skills that have lost coins and then only have 1 coin remaining. The idea is just to give him a bit of extra power, even if he loses a couple coins in a clash. For the rest of the passive, I made it 4 res because some of the effects are pretty strong in my opinion. Because he already rolls super well, so Slash Kills just getting 2 base power is just really good. And on top of that, I made it so that all other allies gain +1 coin power to their counters, and allies from the Blade Lineage gain some shield equal to max HP. So the idea is that they, just hit even harder on their counters, and Blade Lineage units just get a little bit of shield so they can mitigate some of the damage they take when using those counters. And again, a bit of flavor. Allies from the Kurokumo cannot benefit from the passive. I wanted to stick Unrelenting on here, so I decided just to put it on a 4 res support passive. So you just activate this, and then if an ally takes fatal damage during the turn, it'll reduce it by 50, and then reduce incoming damage by 50 for the rest of the turn. And then after that, they'll gain 2 base power for their single coin skills for the rest of the battle, like version of Singular Strike. Skill 1 is just pretty basic. I made it a bit stronger on the poise count for some extra synergy with Captain Ishmael and Pride Res. Just like a bit of bleed, a bit of poise uh, for this. So it's pretty basic, shouldn't linger too long on it. For Overthrow, it seems to be like a pretty basic 3 coin, skill 2. So just a bit of aggro, some poise count on use, and then on hit, use against the poise, inflict some bleed, and do some bonus crit damage and bonus bleed infliction. Like again, I have it listed as Pride here. And honestly, I should probably like make it a difference in affinity because at the very least, there's no precedent for them doing a skill 1 and skill 2 of the same sin affinity. That's usually reserved for skill 2 and skill 3. So, like, honestly, just probably like Gloom or something to help shore up that weakness even more. Anyways, moving on to the skill 3. Well, this is really the main event, right? So it's just a 1 coin skill. Remember, the passive gains 2 base power, so you can think of this as like 7 to 10. So it's weaker than like pretty much all the 1 coin skill 3s in the game, but it's still a bit hard to lose a clash with this one. So that's like the main idea. I'm thinking of how they're going to balance it. And this just has an effect where on clash lose, you'll gain a bit of fragile. So you'll take a bit more damage, but you'll gain a ton of aggro next turn. And just like a bit of paralyze and bleed, but reduced. And counter here is, well, this is how my idea how they're going to implement like I guess you could effectively call it a force skill. So essentially, it just checks if this has lost a clash, and if it has, the next time you use this counter, it'll transform them to claim their bones. Has a bit of bonus damage on hit in case you just want to use it without having lost a clash with this. And for here, I just made it a really, really strong counter. So that's what I think it's going to be. Well, obviously, it's going to be that. So the idea is that you'll deal more damage based on the HP loss last turn, up to the max 30%. And it's just like a special counter, like considering what we see from the video. I think that this will have a special effect where it'll actually hit before the enemy attacks instead of after. Because, I mean, that's really just what it looks like. Because, like, they attack into him, he blocks it, and then he just hits them with all the coins. And I've not too many skill effects on this. Just on the final coin, you get the 3 paralyze, 5 bleed. That's just like the signature, and a bit of bonus damage on critical hit. The rolls is a base power of 5 and a coin power of 4. I was originally going to make this like a daring decision roll, so that's like 4 base power, 5 coin power. But really, the main issue is that regret exists, so you gotta keep it a bit lower to keep things mostly balanced. Yeah, that's basically just my prediction for what these IDs might do, or at least like generally along the lines. Like, I know everything's outlined pretty exact here. Maybe like in the future, I should keep it more vague, but like generally just take this as like a vague like idea of what these IDs might do. This should like be up like just a couple hours before the actual skill reveals take place. I wanted to get it out earlier, but stuff happens, so I just we'll just have to wait and see, right?